Hey YouTube, it's Frisky Dingo here, getting back with you guys with another reaction slash review video. Today we're looking at Ugas versus Manny Pacquiao. I ended up getting to watch the fight myself. I ended up actually watching it for free on the internet. And I was kind of already upset on the fact that, Spence had to pull out of the fight, but obviously with a tear retina, you can't really do anything about that. I'm just really upset that, unfortunately he had the car accident and then he had, the lackluster performance against Danny Garcia. And now, unfortunately, he's going to have to be off for another 6 months. So I'm kind of really upset about that. Hopefully we could see Spence get into a good fight soon. But for now, we end up getting Manny Pacquiao's replacement, which end up being your Dennis Ugas, who has always been in the mix in the welterweight 147 division. He's always been amongst the top five. I honestly would have to say he's probably the top three best welterweight in the last like 2-3 years. Even when you look at the welterweight division in 2019, it was still Spence, Crawford, Porter, and then Ugas in the back. And now that I think with Sean Porter kind of losing his title, to Spence, Ugas being able to take that matchup kind of brought a shakeup to the 147 division. Ugas now being the full recognized WBA super champion, regular champion, however you want to use it. I hate the whole junior belt thing that goes on in boxing, how you have a world title and then you have a junior title underneath. I never understood that. I get it, it's to sell more fights and more boxing fights and all that, but it just doesn't really help what we're looking at. But overall, I'm happy that we end up getting this type of fight because honestly, I was waiting for something like this to happen. After seeing Manny Pacquiao's performance against Thurman, I kind of had made the statement already that he should retire after the Thurman fight. And there was multiple reasons why I believed why he should have retired after the Thurman fight. The biggest factor being after the 6th, 7th round, his legs completely started to fade. If you actually watch boxing and you see that all the technical parts of boxing, my favorite thing to look at when watching a boxer is their footwork. A lot of times my eyes are always centered at their feet just to see what's going on. It really helps you understand who's about to make the first strike, who has the right distance down, and who has the better footwork technique, which is a very important factor of boxing. But yeah, in this fight, I would have to say when he fought Thurman, after the second half of the fight, his reaction to shots were extremely bad, and his legs were extremely bad. Basically, with the shots, I remember in about don't get me wrong, the 10th round he hit Thurman with a perfect good shot, but also in the 9th, 11th, 12th, and in the 10th round, he got hit with a couple right hooks that did not look good, like just didn't look good at all, like in the sense of how he was absorbing it, the way he was moving around after he got hit with those shots. It didn't look good. His legs looked like they were going to give up from underneath. The only reason he really won the Thurman fight was that Thurman had a 2-year layoff. I mean, we have to be real honest about ourselves about Manny's wins since losing the horn. Even with the Vargas fight, the Jesse fight, that kid is good, but he's nowhere up there to the top good. So that's number one. Broner, come on, like, are we being honest? Like, AB, we all wish he was like in his prime back. He should be in the top 147 conversation right now. It makes absolutely no sense why Adrian Broner hasn't tried to reclaim his status, which is an absolute waste of talent. And I can understand why Mayweather separates himself from him. But even in that situation, AB was already pocket shot. AB's entire technique was completely wrong for that fight. And his technique has always been wrong after he lost to Maidana. He started to continue to use the shoulder roll. I mean, not the shoulder roll. The shoulder shell, aka the Philly shell. And he, a lot of times he would be within the pocket and use the shell for his defense. But the problem with that was, after he got gun shy, you can't be a counterpuncher, use the shell, but also not throw punches. That doesn't really look good for the judges, and it doesn't look good for your performance. That being said, Adrian Broner is not a good win. And then you follow with Thurman being on the 2-year layoff. That wasn't a good win. So basically, I think Manny was going into this fight completely disadvantaged compared to what people really understand. Because, the regular fan of boxing, they don't really look at the styles. They don't look at the body. They don't look at these type of technical things. The only thing they care about is really action, like who's beating up who's rumbling, who's bleeding. That's like the stuff that they care about. But a real boxing fan who loves boxing is going to look at all of these other components that surround the boxer, which helps you understand who's going to win that fight. And, that's the science behind it. So with Ugas coming into this fight, I had 100% understanding that Manny was going to lose. There was no way he was going to win. Even if you use the understanding, their last best fight, or Ugas lost to Sean Porter split decision on a split decision. Sean Porter then lost to Spence at a split decision. So that just lets you know in itself that Ugas, even in the Porter fight, he lost a split decision, but yet he looked good the entire fight. Many people believe that Ugas beat Porter. The only reason Porter won was because his style is more favorable amongst fans and judges, because he has the brawler style, which basically means he likes to move in and out the pocket, throw a lot of 1-2s, be right in front of your face. He likes to try to cut off the ring, but also more work on the physicality of boxing. Clinching you up, roughing you up, getting you into the corner, catch you with the shots, catching you with a good straight or a hook, backing out, just roughing you up. That's what Sean Porter does, and fortunately, it looks good for the judges. But Ugas' style, because he has that traditional type of Cuban boxing, people think he's boring. And, me, I'm a boxing purist. Ugas is not boring. It's like watching a butterfly, do his work, do his thing. And that's what I love about your Dennis Ugas, because a lot of people say that he has a Cuban style, but realistically, I will say his patience is very in the Cuban style. But his footwork is very, very much there, but it's not, moving in and out lateral spaces, moving out in and out of pockets. That's not really what he does. What Ugas is really focused on is the technical part of his boxing. He's good at setting up combinations. He's good at establishing his jab. He's good at moving within and out the pocket. He's good at roughing you up. He has good endurance. He's a full all-around Cuban boxer. And even when people were telling me, that Porter won, I said Porter did not win that fight. Like, I don't know what people were watching, but I gave it up to Porter because his style just looks better when you're watching it. But if you're a fan of boxing, you used to do boxing, or you understand boxing in the sense of technique, then what you saw you guys do is he looked wonderful. And Sean Porter, after the 9th round, started failing. But, overall, we end up getting an extremely good fight with Ugas versus Pacquiao. My favorite part of the fight was Ugas just setting up that jab, moving around the ring, and basically giving Manny Pacquiao a problem. Every time, because Manny was never known for defense, but every time Ugas would basically dictate the length between the jab, Manny couldn't jump right back into the pocket. He was getting stopped completely every single time, just getting stopped. So, honestly, if anything, Ugas definitely watch Mayweather's win. and took that with him because he just looked completely sensational. His defense needs a little work on, but other than that, the way he moved in and out of the pocket, brilliant. The way he set up the jab throughout all the rounds, brilliant. The way that he caught Manny when Manny was trying to move in and out the pocket, brilliant. So all I could really say is that that fight was a beautiful performance of 12 rounds. And not a lot of boxers can fight for 12 rounds consecutively. And this is why, I'm, really hesitant on what's going to happen with Spence, because his last fight against Danny Garcia, he looked horrible after the sixth round. After the sixth round, he started to slug. His legs didn't look as strong. His shots didn't look as strong. So I don't think that him versus Ugas is going to be the fight everyone thinks it's going to be. So I hope deep down that it ends up being Crawford versus Ugas. But realistically, I know that with Spence and PBC, they're going to try to hold on to that fight as long as possible. But realistically, Manny just was a shell of himself. It was not the fight that everyone thought it was going to be. Honestly, I didn't expect Manny to do anything surprising or be this type of fighter that people thought that was going to show up and beat you guys. I didn't believe that at all. The Manny, don't get me wrong, the Thurman fight was impressive, but if you look at the technicality of it, it just shows you that there's no way if you put Manny Pacquiao in there with a strong, elite welterweight that he's just going to run them over. And that was the case for this fight. You put him in there with Ugas. Ugas has this almost the same identical kit to Spence. So we're sitting here getting the jab, establishing the distance, working off combinations off the jab, moving in and out the pocket, all these very sophisticated boxing skills that take to be a champion, that you need to be a champion. And that's what he displayed. Even I think the most beautiful part in that entire fight was when Manny, every time Manny tried to hit the angle, even though, and this is the thing about Manny, how you could tell the fight, I honestly don't think that, he actually was ready for what was going to happen, because even in that fight, he didn't move his head, he didn't do any feints, anything. But every time he tried to move in and out the pocket, the first thing Ugas would do is set up the jab. The minute the jab connects, the minute he feels that jab connect, he sets up the hook. It doesn't matter what Manny was doing. Even the minute he moved out of the pocket or jumped in the pocket, that hook was coming right after him. So just to see that type of technical skill is beautiful. Ugas, you get a standing salute, because honestly, he's a very humble fighter. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's overconfident, this and that. He is humble, because not saying Ugas not a real fighter, but if somebody really wanted to, they could have destroyed Manny Pacquiao that night, kind of like what Jeff Horn did. But this fight, he could have really gave Manny some problems. Like, he let Manny go out on his sword and shield, and I'm happy for that. And that shows a lot of humility, because the minute he saw Manny waning, he could have went in there and stopped him by the eighth. By the sixth round, Manny was not doing anything. The fight was not his anymore. Anybody that scored that fight to Manny after that is lying to themselves. And that's the only thing I could say really about that entire fight. Watching it, like, people were giving Manny, one of the two judges gave Manny the ninth and the eighth round, and I'm like, where? Manny, he didn't do anything at all. And I love Manny Pacquiao, but come on, like, very huge biases. Ugas had a perfect boxing match for all 12 rounds. For him to be a champion, he definitely established himself. Like I said, Manny didn't do anything that would have been of notoriety in that fight. And honestly, and a lot of people are going to be, upset about this. This is very controversial what I'm about to say, but honestly speaking, I don't think Manny Pacquiao took this fight seriously or wanted to listen to his coaches, because when we watched him fight Thurman, he was listening to his coach. He actually was listening to Freddie Roach, he was doing all the little things to get the fight going. He was setting up his jab, doing all these beautiful things that you haven't seen Manny Pacquiao do in almost a decade. And then this fight, he looks like he's fighting Mayweather. And that's exactly my point. Like, that should not be the case. When he fought Mayweather, it looked the same exact thing. I thought, is this guy fighting for real? Like, is he taking this serious? You know, so all I could say is, even during the fight, it was very disparaging to have Manny talk to his coach, Freddie Roach. And even Boo Boy was in there, you know, trying to give him information. And Manny was just like this. Not a single word. So, you know, if that was going to be his last fight, it's sad that that's the type of last fight that you're giving the fans, honestly, in all opinion, you know. And a lot of people say, well, Spence, he was waiting for Spence, but, you know, like Mayweather always says, you know, you got to adapt. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able for the next thing that's in front of you. You know, a replacement isn't an excuse. So that's all I could really say. Like, if you know you're about to fight somebody, even with that excuse, I just realized it's a bad excuse because Spence and Ugas have the same, almost the same exact identical kit. They're both Olympic boxers, so they both really know how to box for 12 rounds and get the points. So I don't know what to say. You know, I think Manny just got bested. You know, you can't expect a 40-something-year-old boxer who has a 2-year layoff to just come in there and get it going. You know, it takes a lot of work, a lot of technique. And also, I think one of the bigger takeaways is that people are saying, well, you know, he was young and this and that, but at the same time, George Foreman and Bernard Hopkins, they were not in politicians. They were still boxing lovers. George Foreman was always in the gym when he re-signed and became a professional again. The same thing with so the same thing with anybody else that's done that. Like, no one else has sat there and tried to do boxing like Bernard did, like George did, and not take it seriously. And that's one of the bigger factors. I think that Manny being a politician had a lot of other things going on and couldn't bring his full potential to this fight. Because once again, if he was in there trying to make a difference, trying to make a statement, he would have had a game plan. He would have had his coach telling him stuff. That's one of the worst things you could see in a boxing fight. One of the worst things you could see is a coach not giving you any reliable information and just leaving you to the win. And 2, a fighter not saying anything to their coach. Yes, there is some greatness to boxing, and some boxers don't need a coach to tell them what to do. They just have the instinct. But this is boxing, and that's a rarity. You need your coach. So the only thing I can say is I cannot wait for the next boxing fight that might come up. From what I've read, the next fight we're getting is the big fight is Fury versus Wilder. I believe that's in October. AJ versus Usyk. Ooh, that's gonna be a good fight, but that's for another video. So once I see once they do the media press, I'll make the video for that, and we're gonna move right into that. So it's been a bad year for boxing, but hopefully we can end it on a good year. So shout out to Manny, 8th division champion, one of the greatest boxers of all time. Hopefully he comes back and does an exhibition or something. That'd be great to see. And shout out to your Dennis Ugas for, cementing himself as a 147 welterweight. Historically, the 147 division has always been one of the best, and at all the weight classes, one of the best. So for him to establish himself is historical in itself, and he will be remembered in history because of this fight. So hopefully we'll get some more news about boxing, and I'll see you guys in the next one.